Good afternoon. Welcome to Facebook Live with the KC Star's Editorial Board. I'm Toriano Porter. I'm joined today by my colleague Dave Helling, and we have a very special guest today, the new fire chief for the KCMO Fire Department, Chief Donna Maize. Thank you for joining us, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Now, we have to mention that you are the first female fire chief in the history of Kansas City, Missouri's fire department. How do you feel about that honor?
Oh my. There's a lot of weight that comes with that, I think. One, for me, it's always been about being the best at whatever I do, and being the best fire chief I can be is really my number one focus. Mm-hmm. But it's not lost on me being the first female fire chief, and being able to break that glass ceiling here in Kansas City has been phenomenal to have that, and really understanding that there is responsibility that comes with that, being a good role model for younger females, the ones that work with the fire department and the other females in our community. So
right. Mm-hmm. Okay, years ago when you got into this industry, mm-hmm. did you ever think you would be fire chief one day?
Oh my. Actually I hate to say it, but I mean, my goal was always to go as far as I could, mm-hmm. and with the hopes that maybe if all the stars align and I work hard at it, that I could get here. So I mean, that was always kind of my goal, but knowing that from 1,200 people to number one, the number one spot is difficult.
Right.
Probably made myself work a little harder.
Can I ask you this? There's a history mm-hmm. of checkered relations in the fire department, as you know, with mm-hmm. women firefighters, and mm-hmm. there have been lawsuits and accusations and mm-hmm. claims of bad attitudes in fire stations, but also the lack of facilities, lack of promotion. Are those problems solved now, Chief, or where are we at in that process?
I wouldn't say 100% solved. We have worked hard to get make changes to our facilities themselves. A lot of our buildings are older construction, and a lot of our buildings, just finding the funds and the finances to be able to do that.
They needed to be retrofitted,
right?
For
right,
women firefighters.
And so we've been working hard at, obviously, we've created stations that have safe places, locks on bathroom doors, those sorts of things, locks on locker room doors, but to really kind of do what we call a gender neutral retrofit. We've been trying to tackle that kind of one station at a time. About 4 or 5 years ago, we had the funds to do 3 additional stations. Today, we talked about the need for another station that needs to be retrofitted, and we have a couple more that will need that.
But do you feel the department can confidently ask women to step forward and apply for jobs in the fire service?
I mean, most definitely.
Because 20 years ago, that might not have been the case, that women might not have been welcomed into the fire service.
Right. No, I think so. I mean, I think we're at a point where, 10 years ago when the ambulance service merged into KCFD, there was a lot of paramedics and EMTs that are female, and so we really had to kind of address some of those issues at that time, and we continue to try to make strides and improve working conditions for everybody that is employed by us, because we have a lot of people with a wide variety of backgrounds, but specifically to the male-female issue, I think it's something that we have, obviously many years ago, we were put on notice about it, and so we've been making great strides towards, really kind of making it a better place for everybody to work.
Okay, Chief, you're the third chief here, probably in less than a year. Mm-hmm. Stability at the top is always a good mm-hmm. thing. What's kind of your goal and your, your vision for the fire department to bring that stability back? Yeah,
so I think, my first couple of weeks there, I went and made station visits, and those were the things that I really kind of talked about was, we're at a point where we need to continue to move forward. We need to identify the, 2 or 3 short-term goals that can get us all moving in the same direction. And so we, working, with both labor organizations and my management team, we all met together as a group. We had a facilitator come in, and we kind of looked at really, there's a few policies, that we think we want to reset just to kind of get people, more pride back into their role. My whole focus and goal is, providing a professional service mm-hmm. and serving the needs of citizens. And so that's really been my message to the people that work for us on a daily basis, and really letting them know that, they're the face of the department. We have a PIO, we have a fire chief, all of that, and obviously I'm getting some recognition being the first female, but really on the day-to-day basis, it's the boots on the ground mm-hmm. are the face of the fire department, and really making sure my role is to ensure that they have the tools and equipment and training they need to be able to deliver that service professionally mm-hmm. and to the best standards we can, and really that's what makes the fire department popular in the community is when you have that one-on-one interaction.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, you know, you have a large staff. How do you facilitate and get your word down to the boots on the ground? Do you go through your deputy chiefs, your battalion chiefs? Who do you drive home the message to? They can send it out.
Yeah, a little bit of both. You know, I try to instill that in, you know, with our shift deputies that really have the majority of the workforce working for them. And then, you know, having them impart that message through the battalion chiefs and everything. But that is actually one of the goals that or objectives that we hit on in that meeting was how do we improve communications throughout the department and throughout the organization, because without communication, you know, if you're somebody that's, you know, sitting in your ambulance or sitting in a fire station or wherever you work and you don't know what direction the fire chief is taking the organization, it's easy for them to sit there and say, well, they don't care about me, or, you know, what's going on, you know, at fire headquarters or whatever. And they really need to know those messages and know what we're working on. And we have a pretty strong labor management partnership, and so we do a lot of work on kind of those, I wouldn't say problems, but like little issues that come up. You know, do we, you know, select this type of hose versus this type of hose, or this tool versus that tool? We really try to engage with, you know, through a committee process and kind of put that onus back on, you know, letting field people to have that input and interaction and help us make some of those decisions.
Okay, at what point you were the assistant city manager for public safety and the interim fire chief?
Yes.
How were you able to manage both those jobs, and are you still doing the assistant city manager job now?
Officially, my title is no longer assistant city manager now that I took the fire chief job full time. I am working on kind of transitioning out of those projects as I am able to. Some of them still have that public safety nexus, so I'll still be involved in some way or another, but really it was very important for me to manage my calendar and be just dedicated to getting me to the right place at the right time. And I've always liked the idea of, you know, I've moved around specifically and strategically throughout the fire department, because after about 3 or 4 years, I get a little, you know, like I want to learn something new, I want to, you know, be refreshed or whatever. And so having those roles where I shift focus a lot, I feel like I'm pretty good at it. I mean, you know, I'm not perfect or by any means, but I think that's been really the key to my success in handling both roles.
Can I ask you about a specific issue which I'm sure you're familiar with in the fire service, and that's overtime and vacations, which are a constant source of irritation to at least some members of the city council and city management. And I think the highest paid employee in the city is in the fire service, EMT, because of all the overtime. And we've written some pretty critical editorials about that, as you may know, Donna. Can you give us some sense as to what your plan, if any, is to address those issues? Excessive overtime, too much overtime for some members who end up working 30 straight days or something like that. Talk about that problem.
And so you're right. We have, you know, we've had quite a few vacancies. I think our department has become more, and I don't know if it's a society issue, if it's just a workforce issue, if it's something within the department, but, you know, people that start with a career and go 25, 30 years, while we have people like that, I think what we're seeing now is people, you know, they want to be a paramedic for 4 or 5 years and then they go to a different department to be a paramedic over here, or a firefighter. You know, even our firefighters are doing that a little bit. So we have you know, where it used to be that we had a pretty consistent retirement at the end of the calendar year, we're seeing where people leave and move on to other career paths.
But
and
your
so that
overtime
kind of creates,
problem isn't just over people, the
No,
workforce,
it isn't.
it's vacations and other
yeah,
things.
so
all
then we have, you know, and you know, we have contracts and they have
and they can
you
be
know,
complicated.
and they are very complicated, and you know, they have benefits that they've earned and those sorts of things. And so it's really, you know, it's a combination of things. So it's all of that. You know, we have a lot, what we're seeing a lot more is kind of compassion fatigue and mental health issues within our workforce too. And really, while people think that it has to be some big significant event that you see that causes you to, you know, trigger something or whatever, we're seeing that it's kind of that day in, day out of seeing, you know, trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. So we have a little bit of that going on. just within the organization that we're trying to address. I think a big trigger was 2015. You know, we saw a huge spike in that after we had our line of duty deaths and you know, and then injuries and all of those things. And so, you know, it's really about how do we heal the whole person and then get them back to work quicker. You know, and it's causing people to use more vacation and more of their earned sick leave and benefits and those sorts of things.
So the question is, though, do you think you can get a handle on it? I mean, I think the council has been, the old council, as you know, was critical of $2-3 million a year in expenses and overtime,
right. And
which they suggest is a management problem more than a contractual problem or rank and file.
Yeah,
problem.
and you know, I think it's how do we develop the right deployment plan? You know, we're constantly recruiting firefighters and EMTs and paramedics into the service, and then you know we don't want to grow our while we're working towards more and more cross-trained dual role firefighters and EMTs, firefighter paramedics. We don't want to grow our positions ahead of having the people there and trained and ready to fill them. And so that's kind of really what we're working on right now. In January, we're hoping to start we're in the recruitment process now and actually have started, you know, putting people through that early, you know, background checks and physicals. But we're really going to start a pretty good size class in January to try to fill all of our vacancies. You know, it takes about 6 months of training to get somebody on the street, and so it's just that continual process and cycle and how fast, you know, we can get them out.
Would you agree that it's not a good thing for the, you know, somebody making $270,000 a year in the fire service? I mean, obviously that's money earned and positions earned, but that suggests some sort of management.
Well, I think the issue has been it's you know, to me I get it for
I mean, that really sticks
the budget,
out for some people.
for the budget office, for the council, you know, people, you know, I mean, obviously we have to answer to the public on, you know, somebody having that large of a salary, but it's really, my bigger concern with that is, you know, those individuals working all of those hours. And
in a very high stress job in which mistakes are not a good thing.
And just, you know, but it's kind of a double-edged sword in the fact that we need people to fill those vacancies. Some of those individuals that are on that list are very, very good medics and very, very good firefighters and, you know, very good employees, and sharp and quality and excellent at what they do. But you know, there is a little bit of a concern about, you know, if you're working shift after shift after shift after shift, you know, are you going to be fatigued? Are you going to be tired? Are you getting the rest you need? Are you getting the mental breaks that you need? All of those things, because we really do not want to have one of those
And the
issues.
flip side of that is also true in the fire service all over the country, but here as well, that the flip side of that is that some firefighters are getting paid for shifts, for hardly working any shifts at all because of the way the trading works. Is that right? I mean, you do get some sense sometimes because of shift trading and other things that firefighters will go weeks without actually coming to the firehouse.
Yeah, well, you know, we have.
I mean, maybe that's not a problem.
Yeah, we haven't run into that problem as much. You know, we have some policies on that, and we try to kind of keep an eye on it. But we haven't had those issues where, you know, like stories I've heard are, you know, they live in California and they work in Hawaii and they, you know, show up. We really haven't had those types of problems. But we do try to, you know, while they have that ability to do that, we do have some policies in place and
try to stop it.
Trying to look at that.
And I wanted to touch on the recruiting angle. Are you in favor of the required residency rule here?
You know, it's hard for us, and we do ask for waivers at times because, you know, we are looking for people that already have that paramedic skill set or certain, you know, skill sets. It's hard for us to always, you know, be able to pick a pool of, you know, somebody that already lives within the city limits that has that license already. And so it's difficult. And we have asked for residency waivers on, you know, especially when we're looking for specific skill sets. And so we bring them in, and then they have, you know, I think the requirement's like 9 months, or they have a certain amount of time to move into the city limits, you know. And it's you know, there's other departments that have different requirements that, you know, they have to live within, you know, 30 minutes of a certain station or, you know, whatever. And I think for us, it's really about trying to, you know, we're a huge geographic area. And so, you know, if you live at the far eastern corner of the southern part of our city and work at the far northern part of our,
it's a problem.
I mean, it's just, we want people to be at work on time. But I think it's how do we really want to draw people from within our city to work for us as well. So it's kind of, while I don't have a strong opinion one way or another on the residency requirement, I think it's good and beneficial if we can hire people that already live within our city to serve our city, because I think people are more committed, so.
Have you mentioned earlier the integration of the EMT paramedic with the fire service? Are you confident that that process is now in a pretty good place? When it started, I think there was obviously some tension between the traditional firefighters and the EMTs, just because of the circumstances and union things and other things that sort of popped up at the time.
Right.
Is that over?
I think we're at a really, actually I told somebody today, I think we're at that tipping point of it. I think it is, we always kind of knew that once that integration occurred, it's kind of going to take a full generational cycle to really feel like we're 100% cohesive and integrated. But I think we're just at a really good place where we see the dual role cross-trained paramedics at some of our stations work very, very well and complementary together, where they spend part of their time on the fire truck, part of their time on the ambulance, and they get that kind of break and that ability to keep their skills fresh on both sides. And I think that more and more that we get to that integrate, people that can do both roles, I think it'll continue to make us better.
And that's important, isn't it, Donna, because the nature of the fire service is changing. You have far fewer calls than you might have had 30 or 40 years ago. Fire calls.
Fire call, yeah, I was going to say, because our call
enormous,
volume,
yes, but fire calls.
Yeah, so our call volume has increased about 20%, year after year after year. But yeah, I mean, and that's really been going on for a long time.
Generations.
Yeah, exactly. And
safer buildings, water systems.
We've done a fantastic job of fire prevention, and we have a free smoke detector program in the city, and just all of those things, building codes and making all of those changes so that
you guys do the carbon monoxide awareness as well too here.
We do some training and awareness information, pass out information, but right now we really just give out the smoke
But the idea of
detectors.
integrating your service is very important. Because
But it has been important because while in 1992 with the cadet class that I came through, that was the first cadet class that was required to maintain their EMT license, and so that was the first step of recognition that there's a serious switch into we've trained people to call 911, and a lot of the emergency calls that the fire service runs are EMS related calls, whether it's a motor vehicle accident, whether it's somebody's sick, heart attack, whatever, complications from diabetes, whatever their medical issue is. We've been responding to that, and I think that is that trend's been going on for a long time, but it's really important for the fire service to morph and adapt and be able to do all of those things.
And you're pretty confident
well
you're able to do that in Kansas City.
I
mean,
feel
that's
like
kind of your top job, isn't it, to manage that.
And it's been good, and I think it is a matter of I think people have made that realization that is such a critical component of the fire service.
Tradition is a big part of the fire service, isn't it? I mean, that's my own experience is that's really one of the toughest nuts to crack. I mean, the fire guys who we've always done it this way, and we're always going to do it that way. As the first woman chief, that's a little bit of a hurdle for you too, isn't it? I mean, have you heard anybody say, I've never had a woman chief? I don't know.
Everybody has been very positive to me, but I think it's because I grew up in the organization. I've taken on a lot of non-traditional roles within the organization and really positioned myself and built relationships to be able to eventually achieve this goal of being fire chief. So I haven't heard any. I mean, I'm not saying I'm popular with everybody, and as the chief, I've got to make decisions that are not going to be popular, and it's really about what is the best service we can provide to our citizens.
Is there a model organization out there that you personally look up to, or a model chief where you can model your leadership style after? Is this just something that's internal for you?
There's a lot of fire chiefs, and I would say I would look back to actually the fire chief we had. Chief Dyer, Smokey Dyer would probably be the one of the best mentors I've had, and there have been numerous ones, and if I came down and tried to come up with a list, I would miss somebody. So, but he's been an excellent role model and really an inclusive leader and really just even keel and knows how to work and bring people together. And so that's
which is the main. I mean, my own sense of Smokey was always that he was extraordinarily well respected among the rank and file, and when he had to make the tough calls, he was respected for that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of your job, isn't it? To make sure that if you have to do that, the people under you understand why you're doing it and what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's really.
That's what he was brilliant at that.
Exactly, and that's kind of been my communication style. Is not that I'm just going to make a decision and slam the door in your face. It's let's talk about it and let me explain to you why we have to go this direction or that direction, and why I'm making the decision.
Because that's not always been the case. I mean, before Smokey, the chief was, I mean, there's friction. There is natural friction between the boss and the working folks. But he just seemed very, very talented at sort of smoothing that over.
Yeah, and I think for me, I've always kind of felt like, as I've grown in the fire service and then, achieved different ranks and then being just who I am as a person, I've always kind of felt like I've been on a little bit of an island in the sense that while I can integrate with the boys club, I'm not always in the boys club, and nor do I necessarily want to be, but I feel like I've been kind of this unique person, and so I hope that has helped me kind of develop that skin to be able to say, you're not popular as fire chief, and you're not going to make everybody happy, but as long as you're doing it for the right reasons and for the good of the organization, and really, again, it goes back to as long as we're providing, excellent public service and mitigating those emergencies, that's what it boils down to.
And Chief, as with any organization, diversity and inclusion is always going to be a topic. How have you, in your time as chief, kind of addressed the recruitment of African Americans, Latinos, Hispanic people, just minority fire people?
And as at different times and different roles that I've had the opportunity to actually go do recruitment fairs and those sorts of things. Not that I'm, fantastic at it or whatever, but it's really, for me, it's knowing my strengths and weaknesses are different from somebody else's strengths and weaknesses. I think that's what, having those pools to draw upon is what really makes us an inclusive organization. And people bring so many different experiences and backgrounds and their knowledge to the department and the organization. For me, it's really important that, one, when we're out in the public sees people that look like them. And really, the bigger piece is that I can learn, or the organization, can benefit and learn from those experiences, so that when we are interacting with the community, we have that kind of common background. And I think diversity brings different ideas. I think it brings different strengths. And I think, to think that one person or one group of people has all the right answers is a huge mistake for somebody to go in and think that. So.
And what are some of the things you guys are doing, or some of the programs you have in place to increase your recruitment base?
So, we've really been here recently, and this started, with Chief Berardi. He had the idea, and I'm not sure where it came from originally, but his idea was trying to work with some of the school systems to put programs in for a lot of different reasons. One being trying to gather a broader diversity base and give kids in kind of like we've been working with the Manual Tech high school, and we're starting a program with the Herndon Center out near Raytown, but trying to give them that exposure to a different type of career path, whether it's EMS or getting them started, because basically you need to have your EMT license or get your EMT license, become a firefighter. We'll train you for that. We'll train you to be an EMT. But if we can kind of get you interested in our line of work early, then bringing you on board, and those are some of the ways that they've been looking at and trying to increase our diversity and recruiting people, and so we've been working on those programs for a few years. It hasn't been a easy process, but I think it's a hopeful process, and I don't want to give people false hopes, but really the people that have been working with these I say kids, they're about 17, 18 years, juniors and seniors in high school. Those kids have put a lot of time and energy and dedication, and it's how do we get them from that point to actually obtaining their EMT license. So.
And being a public servant isn't easy. What makes a great firefighter?
Oh my gosh, what makes a great firefighter? I think it's somebody that is up for a challenge, willing to do a lot of hard work, really has a heart for giving back or providing service to people, has that compassion component, and adaptability. I mean, adaptability, because when you work a 24-hour shift or whatever your shift schedule is, you don't know what you're going to be faced every single day. And so it's being willing to, one, know you don't have all the answers, but know that you've got to figure out some answers for other people that are having a crisis. Right. And so, and I think so that's where the adaptability comes in. You don't know if you're going to run EMS calls all day. You don't know if you're going to have a fire that day, and you don't know if you're going to have 0 calls, and how are you going to entertain yourself that day in a positive way. And so, I'm hoping that they're training that whole time. Right, but it's really somebody that has that compassion in them, and adaptability, and willingness to continue, always learn.
And an understanding family.
Yeah.
Spouses
Yes.
and children, understand
Right.
that mom or dad are,
Right.
have a different schedule. There's
No, it's,
question about it.
and that is key, and that's been the key to my success is, I've got a 10-year-old son at home. My daughters are 22 and 23, and they've grown up with me chasing this dream for a long time. And my son has had to, when I was getting my MPA at KU, there were times that I would have to take classes, not just at Edwards campus, but up in Lawrence. And, he was 6 years old, and I remember pulling into the parking lot, and he lost a tooth as he was going to have to go sit in this class with me for 3 hours, and so having, people that are understanding, one, that, they were great professors that allowed that, but a 6-year-old wants to not be
in class with
right,
mom.
right. So I've been very fortunate to have very supportive family. And
Great.
Okay.
That's
That-
great.
That's a great anecdote and a great way
So.
to end this segment. We want to say thank you for joining us here at Facebook Live, the editorial board. I'm Toriano Porter, colleague Dave Helling. And again, just want to say thank you to Chief Donna Maize, first woman firefighter, chief firefighter in Kansas City history. Thank you for joining us.
thank you for having me. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.